Hi, I'm Adamson, and today we're going to talk about trans vulnerability and dating. What I mean by that is that feeling that you get when you feel vulnerable in your trans identity, that the person that's treating you poorly is perhaps treating you poorly because you're trans. Has that ever happened to you? Or have you at least ever thought that? That kind of insecurity that we may have around our own identity, as well as like how we experience our relationship with another person, is kind of it's a painful area. It's really painful dating while trans because often you can continuously feel invalidated in your own experience and who you are. So I wanted to kind of dive into that, and I was just kind of trying to place that all together. But basically, I wanted to share a little bit about my own insecurities and talk about how I moved through some of those insecurities, and also validate you in your own insecurities, because we're all humans and we all experience different insecurities, but the point is we all have them. And it's kind of a tough subject, especially for me. I feel like it's pushed me through a lot, and a lot of identity crisis, or just kind of like reckoning with the pain of being trans, has come through this trans vulnerability process. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me know if you have any thoughts about this subject down in the comments below. I'd love to see or hear from you. And if you're new here, feel free to say hi. So, vulnerability. So let's take a step back before we jump into trans vulnerability, and let's talk about just dating vulnerability, right? Like, you're putting yourself out there and you're saying, I'm looking for someone who I'd like to perhaps connect with in a more intimate and potentially romantic setting, and I'm available. And when you do that, you're kind of like looking for someone who's your match. And right now, the way that technology has evolved dating is it's turned into quite a commodified experience. You are now turned into a commodity that's sold on a marketplace through swipes and advertising and all of that to another person who's also kind of shopping for another person. It can be a little dehumanizing, and I feel like this generation of dating that we're in involves a lot of ghosting, regardless of your gender and your gender identity. People just disappear. You're kind of tossed aside, like you're kind of just like not really a real human. You're just kind of a part of the app, which in some respects you are. If you don't do online dating, congrats. You can do dating in real life, which is going to be perhaps a little better, to be treated like a real person. But the volume of the dates is going to be much lower. So you have to have somewhat of a quality network, or just a lot of patience to wait for the right one to come along. What are your thoughts in terms of dating versus doing like online dating or just doing dating through friends or through your network? Right now, it's kind of hard. So for me, I do a lot of all of my dating really through apps, and I've had some successes and a ton of like what I would call failure experiences. And a lot of that kind of like comes down to incompatibilities, or just being treated poorly because I am trans. Now, that last part I try to avoid as much as possible, but you can't help but feel sometimes that when you match with someone, you are getting, like, if you get unmatched, for example, I match with cis men who are straight, and as soon as they find out I'm trans, I'll get unmatched, and it's just, it's a really painful experience. It brings up a lot for me, because I say to myself, God, like, I feel like a valid woman. I feel like we matched because you were attracted and interested in me. Maybe you read my profile and you liked my profile and you thought that we could connect. But as soon as I mention trans, it's out the door and goodbye and next person. And that feels really painful, because it doesn't feel like you couldn't have matched with that person, because they are attracted to you, they are interested in you. But based on something that has nothing to do with attraction and nothing to do with your interests or your mind or what you bring to the table. It's literally just this thing that you don't have a lot of control over. And that feels super painful because I can't really change that too much. I guess I could get a vagina, but I don't really want a vagina right now. And I don't want this whole dating thing to push me into getting a vagina. What are your thoughts on having a vagina and that in relation to dating? Now, I know all or most of you who are wise, because most of you are, if not all of you, are going to say, well, you shouldn't change your body for someone else. But I mean, how often are you going to say that until you're tired of it? I spoke to a trans girl who, she feels indifferent about her genitals. And she said, you know what? Like, sometimes I just don't want to have anal sex. I would just like to not have to deal with that complication. And so I want a vagina just for the mere convenience of having it. I thought that was a really interesting perspective because I don't have dysphoria with it, but I can see how having a vagina could make things a little bit easier in the sex department. Anyways, yeah, so I just got back from a date and it went really well. But I went on a date with someone that I would consider like in the spectrum of I really, really want to date this person. And that attachment to this person also makes it puts you in a vulnerable place, because if you get denied, then it's gonna hit twice as hard. And also you may make that date harder because you're going to be more attached to that person and that outcome. So there's two ways around this insecurity in terms of dating. The first thing is like understanding that they're not the one, that they're human and that they're not perfect. So you can kind of de-escalate this projection that you've had of a person. And second of all, what I've done is I've created more dating and more dating opportunities for myself. So I can be like, oh, if it doesn't work out with that person, I can like figure something out with someone else. So that's one way that I've kind of worked through my own dating insecurity. The other thing is kind of like the whole sexualization piece. And this is like, this is a hard one. Have you been sexualized before because of being trans? How do you manage within yourself? How do you manage within yourself the feelings that come up from having that experience? Like you get that text message and the way that they're just treating you, they kind of treat you like, hey baby, or like you're cute. And then they're going to want to talk about something sexual or start the conversation coming in hot. You know what I mean, girls? Like coming in hot. And you can de-escalate those conversations or you can kind of just throw them out. Most of the time, I just throw them out. But occasionally, I kind of stick with them to see if things would change. I just wonder how often cis women have to deal with this. I feel like cis women do. But when I use like this app called Bumble, when I match with people on Bumble as a cis woman, in terms of the information that I leave there, I feel like I get a lot more respect. I feel like if I am a trans woman on Bumble, I get unmatches, and then the people that stick around just want to talk about having sex with me because obviously there's nothing else that I could possibly be valid for or an offering. This is kind of a side topic, but have you ever found that being an intelligent person also makes it hard to match with people? What I mean by that is intelligence for a woman is sort of like this mixed bag, because it's important to have intelligence. It's good for your own survival to have intelligence, but there is a large section of the population, that you can't match with anymore because they're less intelligent than you. For men, it's like they don't mind dating women that are less intelligent than them. But for women, it's like if you're intelligent, you can't date a man that's less intelligent than you. And you're less attractive to some men because of your intelligence. So it's like you get this smaller dating pool. And then for me, it's like you throw in being trans and then you get a smaller dating pool. And then you throw in high confidence, kind of like alpha female like myself, and then you get even less people, and then you get, it's like I'm a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche. That realization, and I think that's an interesting realization for yourself, is thinking about how you fit within a larger framework of a dating pool, and how you're kind of like this niche within a niche, at least, and you could be within many niches. I find that typical trans women have, or just trans people in general, have a lot of interests that are very niche, that can make them super, super niche. And the problem of being niche is that you get denied a lot, or that you don't get a lot of opportunities because you're such a niche. It's like this opinionated stance. Once you have an opinion, you kind of like make shades of black and white because of where you stand. And being trans is one of those things where you go, okay, well, you either accept me or not. And this is where I'm standing. I'm standing in my truth, right? Like, what was that experience for you when you came out? Didn't you notice that things started to change very fast in terms of the way people treated you or acted towards you? It can be very binary and triggering. But back to dating, what was I talking about? Taking a stance, being a niche. Like, the thing about being a niche is that those people that want to be in your niche realize you're very special because there's not a lot of you, which I enjoy being a trans woman in that sense. I enjoy people being like, oh my God, you're a hot trans woman. At least that's what they say, I don't know. But like when they say that, it feels good. It feels good to be attractive and exclusive. But at the same time, it means that you also don't have a lot of opportunity with other people that are just going to say no. And recognizing that you kind of have this double-edged sword of losing out on a lot of the dating pool, but also gaining in a certain dating pool is nice. Now, I have to say that some of you have already commented on dating before and said, you know what, I just want to date people that would date me for not being trans, but just being whoever I am, a woman or a man, or et cetera, et cetera. And yes, I agree. I think that's super, super important to find those kinds of people. But, it's like you only have so much time. I want to kind of speed things up. I don't want to start this whole complicated dating process of dating for a while, not telling you, and then telling you later and finding out what the deal is, if you're into it or not. I'd rather just start with people who have elevated and are ready to kind of move on that. I don't know, where do you stand on that in terms of telling and sharing that with the world? I've probably run out of time. Yeah, I've run out of time. Thanks for joining me today, and let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, bye, darlings.